The Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by Shutterstock.com, a global marketplace for royalty-free images and videos. With over 2 million royalty-free HD and 4K video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. And by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988.
Rolling! Action!
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
one show serves a worldwide network of media professionals,
Current.
uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for creative content producers covering media production, post-production, marketing, and distribution around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan, and joining us is our co-host, the ever-affable Mr. Mike Horton.
Hello, everybody.
Affable.
Affable.
I like that word.
I do, too. It's with 2 Fs. Affable. I am feeling mighty affable today.
Nobody has a better F than you do.
I'm watching ourselves right now.
That's going to be cool.
This is cool. Oh, my God. Who do I look like this? Oh, hello. I'm still trying to get used to this whole thing.
Well, you're doing a great job of completely confusing the rest of us. Okay. I just want you to know that. We start this week's show with Brad Malcolm. He's the president of Athentech Imaging, Inc., and they've created a product called Perfectly Clear.
And it's cool.
That automates the process of correcting and improving still images and also has uses for video producers. Then, last week, the Buzz was in London attending the BVExpo. During the show, we interviewed Rodrigo Thomaz, a product and training specialist for Audio-Technica. In this interview, recorded at the show, he showcases new wireless products and shares his thoughts on how to pick a mic for your next project. Then we turn our attention from production to post with a conversation with Kevin McAuliffe. Kevin is a senior editor with Extreme Reach Toronto and an avid community leader. He has close to 20 years of Media Composer experience, and we talk with him tonight about what's new with Media Composer. Just a reminder, we are offering text transcripts for each show courtesy of Take One Transcription. You can learn more about transcripts at takeone.tv, and thanks Take One for making it possible. Mike, you remember all our conversations about the cloud that we've had for production, post-production, putting media up to the cloud?
Are you feeling a little bit better about the cloud?
Last week we got so bitten you would not believe it. Yeah, we planned to originate the Buzz, both audio and video, from BVExpo at the Excel Center in London. We spent the first day shooting video interviews and stand-ups, and then that night I did a rough cut in the hotel room. I was ready to send up the files to back here so they could put them all together and integrate them and put the show together. We had less than 100 kilobits per second upload. It would take a day to upload each segment.
What hotel were you staying at? In some place in Australia?
There was a string that went out the back of the hotel. We realized that 6 days to upload the show was going to be just a non-starter.
Larry, you know, when you go to places like that, you need to just stay in America, where we have the fastest speeds.
So the reason...
Or when you go to South Korea, piece of cake.
Well, it's a place I haven't been recently. So.
Well, it's very fast speed.
Anyway, the reason that we didn't have video, live video, or any video last week is we couldn't get it back here. So we're going to be posting some of the interviews that we did as video on our YouTube channel, but that's why it was audio only. And I know you were worried because you worry about that stuff.
I looked for your video and just saw audio.
And it was because we couldn't get it out of London.
Boring.
It was unbelievably slow. Remember to visit with us on Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. We're also on Twitter at DPBuzz, and subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com for an inside look at both our show and the industry. We'll be back with Brad Malcolm right after this. Finding the perfect royalty-free image or video for your creative project can be a crucial step in the filmmaking process. And whether it's for your website, publication, or video segment, the experts at Shutterstock.com can help you choose from over 2 million
royalty-free HD and 4K stock video clips, including time-lapses, aerials, green screens, and model-released clips. Sourcing over 12,000 brand new video clips each week, Shutterstock consistently offers the highest quality stills and video clips from professional filmmakers. Plus, Shutterstock provides sophisticated search engine tools so you can search and drill down by category, clip resolution, contributor name, and more. Also, use their great no-risk try-before-you-buy options so you can see how their clips will look in your project before making a single purchase. Try Shutterstock today. Sign up for a free account. No credit card is needed. And as an added bonus to you, enter promo code BUZZ2014 before December 31st to receive 25% off any footage package. Discover Shutterstock.com. That's Shutterstock.com.
Malcolm is the president and co-founder of Athentech Imaging. They're the makers of Perfectly Clear. This innovative technology provides intelligent image correction for still images. Hello, Brad. Welcome.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
It is wonderful to have you on the show. Brad, how would you describe Athentech Imaging?
So we're formed by a bunch of smart physicists, engineers, computer developers, and so that's the essence of the company when it was started. So it was to come up with innovative technologies, groundbreaker technologies, and so we are doing that in photography right now. We also have technology in the medical realm, and we also have technology in the earth sciences realm. So that's from a broad picture, kind of what we're about. Invent new things, things that are different that add value.
Well, why did you decide to start the company? I know you're not the founder, you're a co-founder, but what was it that spurred starting a company is not easy work.
Tell me about it. No, it was actually brought to me from my uncle who had met Brian, who was our first inventor, and Brian went to Europe a long time ago to photograph stained glass windows. He came back from his vacation and they were underexposed and they were dark, so he used Photoshop to correct those images to make them better, but that was very time consuming and that was very difficult, and he said the average person isn't going to want to try to do this. That's how he invented the core part of Perfectly Clear. I said, hey, this is kind of cool. And that's where the company was formed and was shown to me, and I came in to help as I could be, and just kind of got sucked into do more and more. And that photography stuff was shown to somebody. He said, this is really cool. What can you do with X-rays in the radiology world? And that was really cool. And then what can you do in the earth sciences realm? So that was really cool as well. So when you get some smart people together, there's a lot that can be accomplished.
You bring up X-rays. I mean, are you enhancing X-rays? Are you making them clearer? What exactly are you doing with X-rays?
Yeah, we make them perfectly clear.
Oh, so they're not perfectly clear when we get the X-rays. You make them perfectly clear.
That's the name of our brand. So that's why I joke about that. So the market we're active in right now is photography, but medical sciences and earth sciences are some other areas as well. The problem with X-rays is there's 4,000 shades of gray when you get an X-ray, but the human eye can only comprehend about 100 to 200. So that's why it appears kind of fuzzy, slightly fuzzy. And so we actively manage that dynamic range to bring out lots of information, pixel per pixel, so that everything is very, what do you call it in X-rays? Everything looks crisp.
So your information is still accurate. You don't actually put in things.
Absolutely. It's very accurate. We have a whole bunch of patents on our technology, and that's the essence of our patents as well.
What's that big white spot?
I was just going to say they're using the spot healing brush on your X-ray would probably be a bad idea.
Yeah, photography, there's a big thing right now, filters, Instagram's popular, all that creativity, and creativity is a good thing, but you can never do Instagram to your X-rays. That wouldn't be acceptable in the medical.
Brad, you mentioned your product, which is Perfectly Clear. Tell us what that does, and more importantly, contrast what that does with what I'm doing in Photoshop when I'm adjusting levels or tweaking curves.
Sure. Well, you could think of us as being a smart... Well, we're intelligent image correction, And we got unique science on how we do that. Our whole value proposition is to save you time so that you don't have to do that in Photoshop. You want to spend time behind your camera, and if you're in Photoshop or Lightroom or those tools, you want to spend your time being creative, not doing mundane image correction. And that's what we do. So when your images are dark, if you have red eye, if they're noisy, when they're lacking in color vibrancy, all those challenges we overcome. In other words, cameras have physical limitations. They have a single aperture, which acts much different than the way the human eye works, which is constantly and dynamically dilating so that you can always manage all the incoming light. So everything you see with your eye looks great. You snap a picture in a single point in time, and that's why you have exposure issues. That's why you have noise issues. So we overcome those things. So so that's what we do. So we're a big time saver. Well, so a lot of the stuff we do, you can do in Photoshop. A lot of the stuff we do, you can't do in Photoshop, but we're going to get you there quicker, instantly.
Well, there was a point on your website that I was really confused about, because you were talking about the fact that when you are doing Photoshop and you are adjusting settings or cleaning up color, you're actually damaging the image, which was surprising to me, because I didn't realize that if I was doing a levels adjustment or a curves adjustment, I would be damaging the image. Is that what's actually going on, or are you just interpreting the images differently?
Well, no, that is true, and it comes from a different shift, because remember, digital is everywhere now, but it's relatively new. 15 years ago, 12 years ago, it depends when you define it when it started. So what happened when we started to take digital images is we retrofitted, or companies used the same technology that we did in film and used that concept. And what that means is you add white to brighten an image. Well, when you add white to brighten an image, it becomes washed out or faded. So now you have to add in color vibrancy to bring back that color vibrancy. Now when you do that, the color shifts, so it becomes oversaturated. So then you got to brighten it again, and you kind of become in this vicious cycle. And that's what we mean by that, where part of our technology is how we always maintain real color. We maintain the DNA integrity of your photograph. That color of blue shirt that I see, for example, should be blue, or it should be purple. We're not going to shift it. When you run it through other corrections, blue skies can become washed out, or colors become shifted to become prettier. We don't do that. And it's very easy in advanced software tools like a Photoshop or other ones. When you adjust something or levels, you clip, i.e. you go too far. You push it past the dynamic range, the 255, 255, 255, so you lose detail in order to get information in one area. We don't do that. So that's what we mean by that. We maintain all the real color that's in your image.
If someone was a skilled Photoshop user, could they achieve the same results your software does, or is Photoshop inherently causing the problem?
Well, I don't want to make it sound like we're picking on Photoshop, because that's not the point. So it's not that Photoshop's inherently causing the problem. It's just the way that the manual tools are designed, and there's a lot of complexity in an image, so it's really easy to push something too far, or in fixing something, like let's say if I took a picture of you right now and your background's too dark, so I want to brighten up the background. Well, everything gets brightened, so and background is good, but now your face is overexposed. And because we do everything at a pixel per pixel level, in 20 megapixel photo, when we do our correction, we're correcting every pixel independently, so it's as if that photo was taken by 20 million individual apertures. So to your other question as well, though, we have a wide range of corrections. So our noise removal, for example, Photoshop, Lightroom, other tools have noise removal, but there are several sliders to accomplish that. What we do automatically is very powerful. We don't lose details or blur like other stuff does, and it's one click. Our red eye, which is from our partner PhotoNation, that's fully automatic, and so you can't automatically remove red eye. Usually you've got to select an area around here. So if you're a wedding photographer, if you're somebody that does higher volume, with us you can batch process through thousands of images or millions of images. In fact, through our licensees, over 30 million prints every day are automatically corrected with our technology. That's automatic. And that's where the real benefit comes. If you got noise, we remove it. If you're underexposed, we fix that. Got red eye, we fix that. Lacking color vibrancy, we fix it. We detect it and fix it. And then the latest stuff that we added is beautify, which makes it easy to look your best. That's a little more on the creative side, but smoothing your skin tone, whitening your teeth, adding life to your eyes, making that pop, removing dark circles around your eyes. You can do that in Photoshop. That's what people do. But when we show people what we do with one click, it blows them away because they say, wow, I would mask, I would level. That would take me 10 minutes in Photoshop to do, and we do it instantly.
You have the same application for the iPhone and the iPad, so you can add beauty and whiten teeth and all that. Can you really do that with a finger?
You can indeed. We also have that for the Android.
Yeah, well, I'm going to download for the iPad and iPhone and probably try it out tonight because your website makes this look all so wonderfully simple, and I can sure use the help with my photographs. So
but again, that comes down to the value. That's our whole value proposition. We're here to save your time, make it easy to look your best, make it automatic because you have better things to do. And just one thing for clarification is, on our iPhone, we're coming out with a major release here shortly, so that doesn't contain the next generation of Beautify like our current Android does and our current plugins does. That's coming soon, but you'll see 4 out of 9 Beautify stuff, so just to stay tuned.
Now, you mentioned that this is a plugin. What software do you work with?
It's a plugin to Photoshop, and it's a plugin to Lightroom.
And I was just reflecting, as you were listing all the different things that you did, is any of this technology patented?
Yes, we have a lot of different patents in over 15 different countries. We spend a lot of money on patent expenses. And it's insane how much money actually one spends. But yeah, we do all. So yes, our technology is patented, and yeah, as I said, in not just one country, but in over 15 different countries, and there are multiple patents.
Let's go back to this whole color correction, image improvement point of view. When I was reading your website, our eyes see color one way, and our cameras see color a different way. Could you, without confusing Michael, could you explain this in layman's terms, how this works?
Well, there's 2 aspects. There's color and there's light, and color, so light is color. So the eye is constantly adjusting to manage all the color and all the light, whereas the camera is a single point in time. And so that's a large part of the difference between the camera and the eye. There's also a lot of, so in real time, the eye can manage different colors. So if we have multiple light sources in a room, for example, the eye can focus in on one and realize, okay, that object is white and that object is blue. Let's look at snow, for example. Quite often you take a picture and the snow is blue. Well, it wasn't blue. So why was it? The camera has to white balance on something, and it's a difficult problem, and it's easy to get the colors mixed up when there's multiple light sources, so it balances on something that isn't quite white, and you end up with a blue image or a green image, whereas the human eye doesn't have that problem. So it comes down to just the inherent challenges in building an advanced sensor, a camera, and they do a great job. There's a lot of technology in our cameras. They're very advanced, but they're still just physical limitations compared to the human body.
Did you have a lot of fun with that internet phenom last week with the blue and black dress and the gold and white dress, and everybody was seeing it in different colors? I
didn't see that.
Oh, it was huge. It blew up. It was, and then every tech website gave you the reasons why people see different colors. And, of course, none of those essays made any sense to me at all. But people saw this dress in either gold and white or blue and black. And there was reasons for it, something to do with the brain and the eye. I don't know. But anyway, it was a huge phenomenon last week.
Yeah, well, and the body's an amazing machine. The way our retina sees things different. You got the rods, you got the cones, everything's interpreted differently. I don't want to get into all that detail because I may say something incorrectly offhand, but yeah, I mean, it just is amazing the way the human eye works for that. And of course, it gets complicated trying to build that in a real-time mechanical device.
It's interesting, just looking at Mike under the lighting that we have in the studio.
Am I all red?
And no, but looking at Mike outside, you know that he looks the same, but the color temperature of the light is so different. And your eye adjusts to that automatically. In the camera, you've got to tell it what color light it's working.
I know you were always very busy, but did you read about that? Did you get into that phenomenon of the blue and the black and the gold and the white? And
it's very cool.
I saw it as gold and white, and my wife saw it as blue and black.
Yeah, blue and black. That's me. So,
okay.
We'll fight it out after.
All right, we will.
Brad, give us some examples of how we can use the software. From what I understand, and I will confess I haven't run it yet, but really you just load the pictures into the software, click one button, and the processing is automatic. I'm not dragging sliders around. It's doing all that for me. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a couple things as background. We license the core technology, so we provide that engine to our licensees. We're largest printers around the world use us. You've probably used us if you've ever been into a Walgreens or printed through a major retailer. And so that's the licensing side, the B2B side of our business. We have a desktop software, which is Photoshop and Lightroom plugin. Yeah, you install that in Photoshop or Lightroom. It also works in Adobe Elements, and it also works in Corel in their software also, PaintShop Pro. And you load an image in, and you open Perfectly Clear, and it's corrected automatically. We give you 8 different presets that you can choose. So you can choose each one which highlights a particular issue or emphasizes a particular issue. We have a fixed dark for really dark images. We have if you want extra vibrant images, we do have a landscape one. We have our beautify one that accentuates for portraits, because all images are slightly different. So yeah, you click it, automatic. We do have sliders for every one of our algorithms. So for those people that want to fine tune, they can do that. But again, our strength is saving you time. And then same thing in our mobile apps, Android, iOS, which includes Amazon Kindle devices. It's automatic. But if you want, there are slider bars to fine tune. And they're not the same slider bars you'd find in Photoshop. They're unique to each one of our algorithms.
Oh.
We have a live chat, and Dean is asking whether there's any plans to work with Apple's photo application.
So what does work with mean, I guess?
If it's a plug-in for Photoshop, would it be a plug-in for photo?
So that's a good question. So Apple had I don't have an answer to you. The Apple's photo is still new.
Yeah,
so
it just came out. Or did it just came out?
I believe they're still in beta, actually.
Yeah.
But so Apple had the program called Aperture, and they were phasing out Aperture. So whether or not we can be a plugin largely depends upon whether Apple opens up that interface so that we can build in. Adobe has a plugin interface, and so we need that to be available to plug into that architecture. So that's the technical answer. We will have a standalone version out here later this spring as well, which means anybody can use it in anything, which doesn't plug in, doesn't require any host programs. So you can just load images from anywhere. That will be Windows and Mac. And then you can think of it, use us, we're your first step, and then you can use photos from Apple or whatever your other tool is for organizing, sorting, sharing, etc.
I mess around with both Photoshop and Lightroom a lot. I don't necessarily like one over the other. Do I have to buy 2 separate applications for those 2 programs?
No. So what we've done is we have a Photoshop plugin or a Lightroom plugin, or we have a bundle of both.
Oh, you have a bundle. Okay.
Yeah, the plugin is
that's the one I'd get.
$149 just for reference. So you can spend $149 for either Photoshop or either the Lightroom, or spend $199 and you get it for both. So we sell it per platform in that case, those 2 platforms. There's a lot of other companies that have their different filters and enhancements, and they have 5 or 6 different plugins. We just have one.
Our producer, Serena, has found an interesting use of your product with a video workflow, which is kind of cool. What she does, she tells me, is that she uses it to pull a still image from raw video, then uses Perfectly Clear to do a quick color grade for her colors to use as a reference. Have you seen other unusual uses of the application?
Well, and it's an interesting one, and for that workflow, like she's using a Blackmagic camera, if I understand correctly, which is very high quality, and we're talking 4K, so it's high quality. But it comes down to what a lot of people don't realize until after the fact. Hey, I got a DSLR. Hey, I got a high quality. I'm shooting RAW. Okay, so RAW, great. In theory, or practically, we are capturing all this information. But because it hasn't been processed, it's actually flatter than a JPEG is, whereas a JPEG has actually been processed, so it has some punch to it. So people get a DSLR to shoot RAW to think they're going to have a better image, but then they're disappointed because, okay, now I got to have complicated RAW processing software. Well, if you use our technology, then we automatically, we work on RAW files, so we automatically analyze that and give you an image that looks great, but we preserve all that detail. So that's what happens there. You have a high-quality Blackmagic video. You can shoot a still in there, but it's just, it needs some oomph, it needs some punch, and so that makes a lot of sense, and we do see that a lot.
What's the price of the program?
It's $149.
So $139 for Photoshop, another $139 for Lightroom, and then some number for both?
No, but $149.
49.
Yeah, so $149 gets you the Lightroom plugin, or you can spend $149 to buy the Photoshop plugin, or you buy the bundle, which gets you both, and that's $199.
And for people that want to learn more, where can they go on the web to learn more about the product?
If you Google Perfectly Clear, which is the name of the technology, we'll come up as your top ratings. Our website is Athentech, which is our company name, ATHENTECH.com. And two other things just to mention is our mobile app for Android and iOS. It's $2.99. So you could buy half a cup of coffee, or while you're waiting for your cup of coffee, you download the app because it's less than the price of a cup of coffee. Gets you amazing images. And I don't know if Serena has mentioned, but she's also won several awards as of late, and we're featuring one of her pictures, and Perfectly Clear has helped her win that award because it saved her life.
Oh, great.
And
That's
Brad
so cool.
is the president of Athentech Imaging. Brad, thanks for joining us today. I've enjoyed the visit.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
My pleasure.
Brad.
Take care. Bye-bye. When you're working with media, one thing is essential. Your computer needs peak performance. However, when it comes to upgrading your Mac, there are so many different options to choose from that the process can be confusing. That's why Otherworld Computing carries the best upgrades that lets your computer performance and storage grow as your needs grow. Since 1988, OWC has become one of the most trusted names in quality hardware and comprehensive support to the worldwide computer industry. With an extensive online catalog of Mac, iPhone, and iPad enhancement products, as well as a dedicated team of knowledgeable experts providing first-rate tech support, OWC has everything you need to take your current system to the next level. Whether you need to maximize your system's memory, add blazing speed, or enhance reliability, look no further than the friendly experts at OWC. Learn more by visiting macsales.com today. That's macsales.com. Last week I was in London attending the BVExpo at the Excel Center. During the expo, we took our cameras and microphones around the show floor looking for interesting stories to cover, and many of those we presented in last week's show. However, we saved one for tonight. In this interview, I spoke with Rodrigo Thomaz, Product and Training Specialist for Audio-Technica UK, about some of their latest microphone products. Continuing our tour around BVE, we're in the Audio-Technica booth. Now, for those of you that don't know Audio-Technica, it's a microphone company that makes a wide variety of microphones. And what I wanted to do is to learn more about what Audio-Technica's got both in wired and wireless mics. To do this, I want to introduce Rodrigo Thomaz. He is the event manager for Audio-Technica. Rodrigo, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure to be here with you.
Describe Audio-Technica. What does the company do?
Well, Audio-Technica actually started about 50 years ago in Japan, and with cartridges and stylus and turntables. Then we moved on into microphones, headphones, and so on, and now wireless systems as well. So the history is there for 50 years doing great products.
Well, as I walk around BVE, there's any number of microphone companies here. What makes Audio-Technica special? Why should someone consider your products?
Well, first of all, it's a family-oriented business. It's run into a family in Japan for 50 years. And we strive for quality and natural sound. There's no compromise on that. And even our tech specs as well that we advertise, it's very honest. So when you buy Audio-Technica products, that's what you get. A very honest sound, very natural.
Well, how would you compare yourselves with other companies that also emphasize audio quality? I think Sennheiser comes instantly to mind, and others.
Sure. Well, I think one thing we can say about us is the fact that we make very specific mics for very specific applications. Our catalog is huge. You have a large number of microphones. Sometimes you see it's a very similar microphone. However, we do have a microphone for very specific instruments or voices, or even if it's in broadcast or installation, which is a big part of our business as well. So broadcast installation for us is massive. So it's just a variety of products to cover everything in the range of audio.
Well, talk to me more about the wireless. Okay. What have you got that's in wireless? Because I know that one of the new products you have is also wireless for field work. Yes,
right now we are exploring our System 10 camera mount system, which is this little guy over here. We have a number of systems on the System 10 range, and this is now our third incarnation of the System 10.
And what is it?
Well, basically it's a 2.4 gigahertz little receiver and transmitter. So what we have here is a very small little receiver, lithium battery, long life battery, and you have a dual mono and a balanced output as well. So if you do have a DSLR camera, for instance, that you need to feed left and right of the stereo image, well, we do have a dual mono over here that will do that for you. If you do have a camera such as like a Blackmagic or another camera that takes a balanced signal, we just flick the switch and now we have a very nice balanced signal as well. You can monitor your audio as well here via monitor output here for your headphone. We do have our little body pack as well that you can use a number of already very popular microphones, headsets, lapel mics, even goosenecks or boundary mics. So a number of opportunities there for you to use those microphones, and we have about 20 of them for you to choose from.
So I don't have to, I could use the Audio-Technica receiver transmitter with any microphone.
Well, really you can. We use a standard high-res connector. It's a 4-pin high-res connector, so if you do have another brand that you like to use, they already own. I can see that you use a very nice Countryman microphone. That is a very nice product. You could actually just rewire that with a high-res connector, and voila, you have that as well.
There's a real challenge with wireless frequencies getting more and more congested. How do you make sure that you're on a clear frequency?
Well, it's digital. So if you are, for instance, a lot of people use this product will be, let's say, videographers on a wedding or using a DSLR camera. It might have a live band playing. Most likely they will be using UHF system. But even if they are using a digital system, we can fit 8 systems together at the same time in the same place. And the space between each frequency is very nicely calculated. The system is very smart, it's always looking for a free frequency as well, and it never will let you down in terms of diversity. So it's not diversity in a sense, but always look for an empty frequency, and it's a safety net for you there. So if, let's say, a wireless Wi-Fi router is there changing channels all the time, the system is very clever to have always a spare frequency there for you, and you will just flip that frequency, and you never even hear a sound or click or anything, just very seamless.
Audio-Technica has so many different microphones for so many different purposes. How do you decide which microphone to use?
Well, exactly. We do have a microphone range for instance, the Artist Elite, that if you are into a recording studio, let's say if I'm recording vocals, a vintage vocal or a more pop vocal, we do have microphones catered for that as well. For instance, a 4047 microphone. It has a very nice vintage sound, but I can have a pop sort of singer that wants a very crispy sound. May I suggest a 4040 or 4050 microphone. Those microphones are microphones that are being sometimes unchanged for about 20 years, and they are very, very good quality, and people have been using these all over the world, so they're very popular. So it's good to have a chunky catalog. It's hard work for us in tech support. However, for the end user, it's great because you can pinpoint. I have a lady here that came looking for a specific microphone for a violin. So we have a 2031, AT2031 mic, which was designed for strings only. So it's very specific, so we like to do that, to be very specific about our mics, so we can have a lot of mics for a lot of applications.
And what's the model number of this new transmitter-receiver pair?
Well, this we call the System 10 camera mount system. This is how you're going to find this online. So if you search for System 10 camera mount system, that is the kit.
For people that want more information, what website can they go
Well,
to?
they can go to eu.audio-technica.co.uk.
One more time?
eu.audio-technica.co.uk.
And Rodrigo Thomaz is the event manager for Audio-Technica. Rodrigo, thanks for joining us today.
Kevin McAuliffe is the senior editor for Extreme Reach Toronto. He's also an avid community leader with close to 20 years of Media Composer experience. Kevin uses his knowledge to help educate not only the Avid community, but editors currently looking to make a switch to Media Composer. Hello, Kevin. Welcome.
Larry, thanks for having me. Michael, good to talk to you again as well.
Hiya, Kevin. We were worried about you for a second. Couldn't get a hold of you. Yeah.
I know. I was sitting up here waiting for the Skype call to come through, but it's funny because I was listening to that last interview, and you know what? I'll sing the praises of Audio-Technica because I'm actually talking to you on one of their microphones right now, and it's fabulous. I love it.
Oh,
see,
yeah. Who doesn't?
He is a multi-talented individual. Kevin, just to get ourselves started, what got you interested in editing in the first place?
Oh, there's a great story. It's funny, nobody ever asked me that story. It's always a good one. When I was about 14 years old, my parents took me to Universal Studios in California, and I did this thing called the Star Trek experience. Mm-hmm. And basically, they took you and they dressed you up like, you know, I was a Klingon, basically. But they actually made a little 10-minute video, and it was one of those things where I sort of saw all the cameras and I saw the stuff, and I thought to myself, that's something I got to do. You know what? I was totally amazed at how they put this thing together. I still have the video from like way back then. I came back home and I said to my parents, I don't know what aspect of film television I want to do, but that's what I want to do. And believe it or not, at the time, this was, well, let's see, this was about when I was 15, so, you know, what, 25 years ago. They looked up to see how many schools offered this. And believe it or not, there was a school in Ontario, Canada, one school, high school, that had a television studio in it. We were still using, are you ready for this? Video toaster. We all love video toaster. Editing on video toaster with all those fantastic wipes with the football player and stuff like that. But that sort of gave me my first, you know, real look at everything that went into television. And editing was always one of those things that kind of scared me because you had those giant tape decks, you know, that were like, you know, 400 pounds that you had to slam the tape in at the top, you know, 3/4 inch back in the day. But after high school, I took a tour of Sheridan College. Sheridan College is pretty much well known for their computer animation course, but they were, you know, they're also well known for their media and their advanced television. And I walked in and I saw, here's another thing that's going to make me sound old again. I saw nonlinear editing on D-Vision way back in the day. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I'm like, that's what I got to do. I want to learn how to do that. Of course, they made me sit through 2 years of doing the old splicing on the Steenbeck and things like that. But in the third year, I got to use Media Composer version 5.5. So that was, you know, people, when I tell people, you know, they say, oh, I've been using Media Composer since version 5. They're like, what, you've been using it for like 3 or 4 years? I'm like, no. It got to 12 and reset itself and started with Media Composer Adrenaline version 1. So technically it's at version 20 now. So I've been using it for 15 versions. So I've been using it a long time.
I got a story for you on that Star Trek thing. I did an episode of Star Trek Voyager, and I know you did the same thing when you did the Universal Studio thing, where I got to beam up. I got to stand in the pod. I got to beam up, and of course they cut that scene.
No,
of course.
They cut that scene. They actually give you a little badge at the end of that scene when you actually get to beam up on that episode. It was so much fun, and they cut it out.
So no one has
So
ever
if you ever
seen you
see
beam
Star
up.
Trek Voyager, they cut out that scene.
How could they do that to you?
I know. It was so much fun.
Do you still have the bad
I'll look
badge?
for your hand in that episode.
Well, that leads to the next question. You got bitten when you were a Klingon, so to speak.
Yes,
but
pretty much.
what brought you to Avid?
Well, I mean, back in the day, I mean, there was really only a couple players back in the day. You know, there was, like I said, there was D-Vision, which, I mean, at the time was, we only really sort of got an intro because that was sort of the first little foray into nonlinear editing, and then it was Avid. And I mean, pretty much after that, Avid was really the only player. You know, Premiere was around back then. I mean, it obviously wasn't sort of, you know, the juggernaut that it's become today. But it was an Avid world back then, and that was really the only option. And for the longest time, that's what I did. And as we all know, as the job changes and we do different things, other things came along. And for the longest time, I'd actually switched to Final Cut. I was a Final Cut guy for probably about 4 years. Sort of I'll say, I'm going to get lots of hate mail for this. I don't want to say in the Final Cut heyday, but it's sort of in that 5, 6, 7 sort of span, in the Final Cut Studio span. It was really making headwaves, and it was really giving Avid, and I mean, sort of Premiere at that point, it's kind of started to get in the race and was starting to accelerate at that point. But it was really sort of the Avid and Final Cut battle at that time, and I was doing a lot of Final Cut, and at the end of the day, most of the work that I've done has been in collaborative environments. So, and that is really, I'm not going to say that's really where Avid excels, because I mean, Avid excels at editing in general. But one thing that Avid has, obviously, as people have known over the last, let's say 10 years, they've really started to focus on that collaborative workflow. And that has really been, the focus of sort of a lot of the work that I've done has been working with 6 or 7 other editors on many of the same projects. And that's really where, Avid has now started to dominate.
Now, you're based out of Toronto, right?
Yep, Toronto, Canada.
Is it pretty much an Avid town, or is it now becoming an Avid Premiere town? Is it? I know a lot of people still use Final Cut.
In my opinion, it's still a pretty Avid-dominated town. I mean, we're sort of in that interesting kind of a flux period, which is, Apple obviously took the direction that they took a couple of years ago with how they wanted to take Final Cut, and Premiere has now sort of gotten into the driver's seat with Avid to sort of be in that race. And it's kind of become an interesting race, because for the longest time, that was Final Cut's seed. And I'm not saying that Final Cut's not in the race as well, don't get me wrong. But, at the time, it was really one of those, if you could sit down and edit in front of Final Cut, and you went into a Media Composer facility, you could make your way through Media Composer. They were very similar in how they functioned. Well, now Premiere has kind of stepped into that place. If you're a Media Composer editor, you can sit down in Premiere and pretty much get up to speed pretty quick. If you're a Premiere editor, you can sit down. I mean, obviously you're not going to know all the bells and whistles, but you can pretty much get up to speed pretty quickly when editing on either system. Now, Final Cut has obviously taken things, a little bit differently, sort of in the past few years. So.
But I want to come back to this, Kevin, because I'm going to contrast something. Grant, who's in our live chat, writes that Final Cut is so easy to use now, and its functionality for sharing is better than Avid and faster. I can't see the hoo-ha anymore, which gets to something I'm really curious about. There's been, for decades, the whole which NLE is the best and the NLE wars. Where do you stand on this?
Tell me you hate it.
Well, you know what? It's interesting that he said sharing, because I'm not talking about necessarily sharing. I'm talking about a collaborative workflow where you might have 10 editors working on a project at the same time. I'm not talking about a couple editors sitting down. I'm going to edit some, and then, Larry, I'm going to pass it off to you, and then you're going to do some stuff, and you're going to pass it back to me. I'm talking about editors sharing storage, sharing media, working on a project at the same time.
You can do that, right, Larry, in Final Cut with an XN?
No. Now, you can't have multiple people in the same library at the same time. You can access the library from an accent, but you can't have multiple people. No, here, Kevin's absolutely right. The collaboration within Avid beats everything in Premiere, with possible exception of Adobe Anywhere, but beats Premiere and beats Final Cut. So that's a good point.
We're not talking necessarily about sharing. We're talking about a collaborative multi-editor environment. Now, as far as, what's better? That's like me saying, what's a better apple? Is a Fuji apple better? Or is a Red Delicious better? One thing that I always try to tell Final Cut editors, which is, the one thing that's very tempting about Final Cut, and don't get me wrong, it's, a lot of editors say, I can get in there and I can, cut circles around you, and that's great and everything. But one thing I always tell all Final Cut editors, because Final Cut is now, it is a different beast than it used to be, and I say beast in the most respective terms. So what I always tell Final Cut editors is that you might be the best Final Cut editor, Final Cut Pro 10 editor in the world, but you better get out there and you better learn Media Composer, because Avid is entrenched in a lot of production facilities, especially in LA, especially on the bigger productions. And if you want to get in on those productions, it's not like I said back in the day where I know Final Cut, so Avid works very similar. It's a very different workflow now. So get out there, and if you want to get into these facilities that have Avid, make sure you know it backwards, forwards, upside down. And, a lot of people, I always hear people, talk about, the rigidity of Avid. I don't like, Media Composer because it's very, I don't have the flexibility that I have in other applications. But I actually kind of tell people that, believe it or not, that's a blessing in disguise. Because one thing I always tell people, when they go in to set their project up, people immediately always think that when they're setting their project up, they're setting it up to how their footage was shot. And I tell people, I say, don't think that. Think of how you're setting your project up as to what the final file that you're going to deliver to your client is. If you think that way, and you're bringing in media, because again, much like in Premiere, much like in Final Cut, you can bring in any type of media into your Media Composer timeline to work with, but that Media Composer timeline is fixed to what you're going to be delivering at the very end of your production. So if you remember that, Media Composer is essentially kind of giving you the road to drive down and saying, this is the way you're going to drive so that no matter what happens, you're going to get to the destination the way that you need to.
Now, I want to be clear here that you don't work for Avid. You're an editor that just is using Edited. But recently, Avid's been having a real hard time financially. And there's been a lot of talk of the beleaguered Avid. Is it worth editors even learning the software given the difficulties Avid is going through?
Let's put it this way. Obviously, like I said, I don't work for the company. I can't speak for the company. But like I said, I don't really necessarily think that Avid's going through any tough times like everybody is saying that they are. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you take a look, take a look at the Academy Awards this year. Take a look at the films that were nominated for film editing. You've got American Sniper, you've got Boyhood, Grand Budapest Hotel, Imitation Game, and Whiplash that won the Academy Award, all edited in Avid. Do you know what I mean? So, the big players that are out there are still using Avid, and, I wouldn't consider myself to be, the big player because I'm, not editing the Hollywood features, but I'm doing promo editing, I'm doing commercials, I'm doing things like that. And for me, Avid is still the tool of choice.
Why did it take Avid so long to get into 4K?
That's a great question, and that's one that people like to give Avid a bashing for. Obviously, again, it's only my own personal opinion, but what people need to remember, about a company like Avid is that, Avid has different, has two very different and distinct ecosystems. There's technically three if you want to include storage in that, but storage can kind of flip back and forth between the editing side and the post-audio side. But really, there's a lot of factors that Avid needed to take into consideration, such as, interplay, which is, obviously asset management for Media Composer. That's something that Avid has to keep in mind when they're developing their software. So they need to make sure it works great in Media Composer, but how's this going to transfer into interplay asset management? Because you need to make sure that all that, 2K, Ultra HD, 4K media is being indexed the way that it needs to be so all the editors can access it. They need to make sure that all that 4K, obviously audio is, I'll say audio is audio, but they need to make sure that if I'm going to be sending 4K work over to, Pro Tools, that the files that I'm sending to Pro Tools get over there, in one step. So, again, just my own opinion, but, Avid needs to, when they're designing stuff, look at the bigger picture. They can't just look at it as, well, let's just put this in a Media Composer, because suddenly you're going to have a system that's running, let's say doing 4K work at a facility, but then you're going to have another system that maybe hasn't been upgraded yet. So there's just all these different things that they needed to take into consideration when doing this. Again, just my own opinion.
Well, at least he has an opinion. It's
Kevin does have an opinion. Kevin, I just wanted to let you know that I always watch the tutorials that you do. You put them up, about once a week now?
Once a week.
The one, the background animations. Oh, so good. It was so good, so much fun. No, good job. I loved that one. It was just so much fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I want to talk about...
And you can find those, by the way, on... You can find those on PVC, and I think you got a Vimeo blog or on the Avid site, but anyway, Kevin puts these things up about once a week. Go ahead.
Once a week. You can actually find them youtube.com/user/Media Composer 101, user singular.
Yeah, so you can learn Media Composer for free from him. So thank you, Kevin.
That's that's something that I tried to do. Because really, sort of for me, the tutorials got started out at the Creative Cow. So obviously, I want to give a big thanks to them because they sort of, Ron Lindeboom and Kathleen sort of gave me the freedom to. They said, media, Avid is something that's important that people learn, and I did 93 tutorials for them that have had somewhere between 1.5 to 2 million views across all their, all their channels. So, I mean, and I still get people that email me, every day saying, I just watched your tutorials on the cow and I have a question for you. And, so now, I try to direct them to the, to the news site. But I mean, there's still people out there checking out. And that was version 6 of Media Composer. We're now up to version 8.3 of Media Composer. So, people are still out there finding those older tutorials.
Before I talk about how Avid interacts with other software, you started to talk about what Avid does that other NLEs can't, and you stressed how important collaboration, multiple editors working in the same project at the same time is. Off the top of your head, what are some other key features for you that Avid has that we can't get from Premiere or Final Cut?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's an interesting situation that we're in, sort of in the Avid world, because, for the longest time, we've had pretty much most of the features at our disposal that we really need. I mean, one thing that I think, Avid is doing now that I think is kind of interesting, it's kind of like what Adobe did with After Effects, which is with After Effects, we didn't have the greatest keyer in After Effects. So instead of Adobe spending all this time to say, let's develop a new keyer, they turn to, I believe it's the Foundry, and they license Keylight to put into After Effects. And it's kind of like what they've done with Imagineer Systems with Mocha and what they've done with Cinema 4D. And, I mean, it's one thing that, Avid has, great support from is their partner companies like Boris Effects and other companies like that, that really give us tools, in our timeline that is a great sort of, I mean, it lets the guys at Avid do what the guys at Avid do, and lets, the team at Boris Effects develop these great tools for us, like, could be Flicker Fixer, it could be, 3D elements, it could be, all this, great type of stuff, to let us fix the problems that, normally editors, and don't get me wrong, I love After Effects, I'm a huge After Effects user, but a lot of times I just need to get in and do stuff quick in my timeline, and I don't want to be constantly sending stuff to After Effects, even though, the fact that we have Pro Import, After Effects, formerly Automatic Duck inside of After Effects is fantastic, because I just export an AAF with no media. I go, boom, I imported, there's all my Media Composer layers inside of After Effects like in 30 seconds, which is really good.
What's the one thing in Avid that is lacking that you so want and you dream about? Is there anything?
I don't think that there's anything necessarily, because like I said, the partner companies have really stepped up and really filled in a lot of the gaps. It's like, for example, we have the, the Marquee Title Tool, which, I mean, I remember back in the day when the Marquee Title Tool, required its own dedicated workstation. The workstation alone was like, $25,000 or $30,000. And now all of that 3D titling and stuff like that can be done with effects like Boris Effects' 3D Objects or New Blue Effects' Titler Pro. And New Blue Titler Pro, comes
that's
with,
a brilliant
your Media
program.
Composer subscription. So, editors might already have some of these tools at their disposal and they don't even realize it yet.
And New Blue Effects, I mean, they do it for all the NLEs, but they do brilliant work.
Yeah, they do.
Their
really,
marketing
really
team lacks.
How do you move files from Avid to DaVinci Resolve?
Well, that's actually, the one thing I love about, finishing in a program like Resolve is that the functionality is pretty much the same, much like in After Effects. I mean, in Resolve, we can basically take an AAF from our Media Composer timeline, whether it's, a 30-second spot or a half-hour show, export the AAF. Now, this is in, HD or higher than HD. We can do all the way up to, 4K. We can export an AAF, basically go into Resolve. We can link to all the media that we've already digitized. So this is all DNX HD or DNX HR if we're doing higher than HD. It all appears right in Resolve to do our color grade. And then we can actually render out MXF files right back to Media Composer so that when we export when the AAF file gets exported, it's just a link to inside of Resolve. So the Resolve workflow, is a really, really good, solid workflow for Media Composer editors to do, like to use, for color grading. It's a fantastic tool. And the great thing is that, I'll say for most of the stuff that Media Composer editors want to do, the free option will work perfectly. The only thing they need to keep in mind is that, I mean, if they happen to be doing stereoscopy, you've got to pay for that option. But if you happen to be doing any of the DCI resolutions, so the digital cinema resolutions, that requires the full version of Resolve. So something to keep in the back of your head.
Yeah, but come on, it's $999 for goodness sake.
If you're doing stuff for the cinema, I know it's $999 is a really good deal, and it's funny because I mean I'm taking a look at And of course, now the program just escaped my brain, and I have it sitting here beside me somewhere. Fusion, that's the one. And Fusion, what's very cool about Fusion is that Fusion actually has a Media Composer plugin. So you can basically, Media Composer, drag the Fusion plugin onto your clip. You click one button, Fusion opens, do the work you want to do. You say save, and boom, it appears in your Media Composer.
And as we speak, they're working on a Mac version.
That's true.
So there you go. So I mean, that's just. A lot of companies are starting to look, and I mean, let's put it this way: if Media Composer was as "quote unquote" dead as some people like to say that it is, these companies wouldn't be investing a lot of time to make these things for Media Composer. But I mean, obviously, Media Composer is still a big market.
Thanks for all you do, Kevin. I really learn a lot from you, as does my son, who watched that same tutorial just the other day.
And Kevin, where can people find the tutorials?
They can find the tutorials over at youtube.com/user/Media Composer 101. And I just want to thank the great team at Video Guys for being a sponsor, because they've been fantastic. And they can check it out. They can subscribe to it there.
And
we've only
Kevin,
had the
I'm going to cut you off.
months. We've hit about 20,000 viewers so far.
Kevin McAuliffe is a senior editor with Extreme Reach Toronto, a avid community leader. And Kevin, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Stay warm.
Michael, it's interesting listening to Kevin talk about the benefits of Avid. We spend a lot of time talking with Premiere people and with Final Cut people, and it's nice to hear the Avid folks chip in.
It's more nice to hear that he just doesn't give a damn about the war anymore, which I know you do. You don't either. I mean, you have your favorites. You have your what your knowledge is. You don't necessarily need to know all of them. I expect you one day to actually do webinars on Vegas Pro, but you probably won't. But this whole thing about the war and what is best is just really silly, and it needs to stop.
Well, it's like asking yourself, what's the best car or the best camera? It really is the best car for the job that you need.
What is the best car, Larry?
It's easy, Michael. Are you driving a group of 40 school kids across country, or driving 4x sheets of plywood? Because one's a bus and the other's a truck.
Good analogy. I like that.
So,
what is there? Is it a minivan or a Prius? Right.
But we got to have Kevin back. He does such a great job.
He's wonderful. He's one of the best.
So, let's see. We had a wonderful time in London.
What did we have tonight?
We had London, and we had Perfectly Clear, and we had.
By the way, Perfectly Clear really looks cool, because I'm going to download that for my iPhone, because I have this awful iPhone which takes awful pictures.
Yes.
And that could make my awful pictures into perfectly clear pictures.
Yeah, and look what it would do to your.
That was a good commercial, wasn't it?
Look what it do to your elephant seals.
It could.
It would turn them into otters. It'd be great.
Give them a nice skin tone during the molting season.
Beautiful blue. Yes, it'd be great. I want to thank our guests for this week: Brad Malcolm, the president of Athentech Imaging, the makers of Perfectly Clear; Rodrigo Thomaz, product and training specialist with Audio-Technica in the UK; and Kevin McAuliffe, media composer, community leader, and expert trainer and expert editor. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find hundreds of past shows and thousands of interviews, all searchable, all online, and all available. You can talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner. Additional music on The Buzz is provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts provided by Take One Transcription. You can email us at any time via our website. Our producer is Serena Catania. Our engineering team is led by Megan Paulos, includes Alexia Chalita, Ed Golia, Keegan Guy, and Brianna Murphy. On behalf of Mike Horton, that's the handsome guy in a gray suit. My name is Larry Jordan.
It's blue.
And thanks for listening.
It's dark blue.
To the Digital Production Buzz.
Goodbye, everybody.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Shutterstock.com, a global marketplace for royalty-free images and videos. With over 2 million royalty-free HD and 4K video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. And by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988.